Another month has come and gone, and it is time for the July episode of Choose Our Own Adventure. It's me, your boy Seed, joined by the normal hosts, the band of merrymakers that go on this journey with this.
There's nothing normal about us.
No, at all.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We have a young Miss Leslie Ellsworth. How are you?
I am all right.
You know what? Some days, that's all you can hope for.
Yep.
We also have Mr. Brian Martin is in the house with us as well.
Current status, boiling. I just came in from the outdoors, and I don't recommend it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Being
no.
outdoors.
I was out there briefly today.
Yeah.
No.
And we
0
have
stars.
0 stars for the outdoors.
Would not do again.
5 trash cans for all things outdoors.
Poor Yelp reviews for outside.
And that voice you hear is the brand new draft champion, young Mr. Jermon Jackson. How you doing?
Oh my God. I feel like Susan Lucci when she finally won that Emmy, man.
Jermon Susan Lucci Jackson, man. You made it. You made it. Next time I see you, hopefully sooner rather than later, the giant gauntlet will be yours, sir.
I think it's dangerous to be in possession of 2 gauntlets.
It is.
I was thinking about this. They're both built for right-handed use, though, right? So, like,
one
your left hand is going to look all backwards.
No. The Infinity is actually the left. I think the Nano Gauntlet is right.
Oh, no, they did that?
Yeah. That actually happened in the movie.
Those morons. What were they thinking?
Well, it's interesting because it's a right-handed gauntlet, both of them in the movies. And Thanos has it on his right, and Stark has it on his right.
Thanos has it on his left.
It's on his... Oh, that's why he's so pissed off all the time. He just left-handed people didn't get enough respect. How about you want to bet the vast majority of this cold and passionless decimation, which is a whole bunch of right-handed fucks?
I just see that. That's probably why he took Itri's hands or whatever. Right? He was like, "It's a left."
How dare you presume I have a right hand? All right. So let's get this bad boy rolling here, man. If you never listened to one of these bits of business, is what we do on Choose Our Own Adventure. Is this is a Patreon only show, so if you donate at the $7 tier and up, you get to listen. But if you donate the $10 tier and up, you get to provide us suggestions of all the goodness we're going to be talking about today. And we got a couple of bits of businesses here to get through. So before we get into it, man, half the world died over the last month. It appears. We had some Fleetwood Mac in there, John Saxon. Who died today?
Regis Philbin died yesterday. Olivia de Havilland died today.
There we go.
At the age of 156. I told Jacqueline, I was like, she was like, who was she? I was like, well, she was in Gone with the Wind. She's like, oh, wow. I was like, as an adult, she was in Gone with the Wind.
You're right.
What?
Yeah, man. It's all parts of the entertainment industry's been getting hit. Music's been getting hit. Hollywood's been getting hit.
John Travolta's wife died last week too.
Yeah, man.
That one flew under the radar because it was the same day as. It was the same day Naya Rivera was
discovered. Yeah.
It's been a rough.
It's been a rough month. It's been a rough month.
I mean, I'd be like, hell, if like it's 2020, I was like, I'd check out too. Shit, it's rough out here.
They're like, we don't know what November holds. We don't want to find out. We're just gonna dip out. Good luck, America. Yeah. So, rest in peace to all those wonderful people. I sat down and watched Enter the Dragon last night in remembrance of young John Saxon, trying to bet on everything in that movie.
Yes.
Somehow made it out alive. I have no idea how he makes it out of that movie alive, but he does.
Because his woman, because the lady he was with got killed.
Which, it's like a kung fu battle that breaks out. Yeah. Who killed the lady?
What was she doing in the battle?
She's like that little, that video of the breakdancer that kicks the baby across the room. Like viral video. That's what it was like. She just kind of like walked in and collateral damage.
What were you gonna say, Leslie?
So that was actually my first time watching Enter the Dragon, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was good. I maintain that John Saxon looks like an older, less buff Zac Efron. I think it's the eyebrows and the chin.
I could see it. I could see it.
Mm-hmm. So we just got to put about another 15, 20 years on Efron, and he can do the John Saxon story.
There you go.
Nobody will be asking about in 15 to 20 years.
No.
What happened to that motherfucker from Enter the Dragon?
They're not doing a new Nightmare.
So yeah, man. Rest in peace to all those people. Let's get into this month's topics to talk about. Let's start with Duquan Grady Swint, aka C2.0. He said, for this month's Choose Our Own Adventure, I ask, what is your favorite superhero, or barring that, your favorite fictional character? He said Spider-Man. He sees him as the everyman hero. He tries so hard and often falls just as hard. But when push comes to shove, he's the guy that you can count on. This is Peter Parker we're talking about, but don't get me wrong. Miles has risen to the challenge. He just needs to stand the test of time like Peter has. I do believe Miles is 2 decades in. I feel like
about 10 years now.
He's a little bit over 10 years.
A little bit over. God, I thought. Okay, yeah. So the Ultimate Universe,
Ultimate Spider-Man came out 20 years ago.
Yeah, but then
But
Peter had his run before Miles came in.
Yeah, Miles didn't show up until
2011, I want to say.
2010 or 2011, yeah.
Right on. Boom. Yeah, that makes sense for Swint because he's kind of like one of those everyman dudes. And so that just fits with his personality. Germont, what do you want to kick this bad boy off with? Who's your go-to superhero?
Well, of course, everybody knows I love the Fantastic Four. That's probably one of my favorite teams. But as an individual character, I'm going to say probably Green Lantern, in particular, Kyle Rayner.
Really?
Yeah. I always loved Green Lantern as a kid, like watching him on some of the Super Friends cartoons back in the day. I was like, a ring that can make anything, that's pretty cool. But, of course, a lot of people, their entry point would say, Hal Jordan, or if you were watching the Justice League animated series, John Stewart. My entry point into reading Green Lantern was Kyle Rayner. And, because it was like I think he was the closest thing DC had to a actual Marvel character in their universe. Like he wasn't like Hal or Superman or any of these other characters that were like gods, and they were already, the hero archetype before, they got the powers and everything. He was just a dude that got a ring. And like literally like a guardian showed up with a ring and was like, you'll do.
You like this? You want this one? Nobody's using it.
Yeah. I mean, he was like their Spider-Man. He was, he was a struggling artist. He was trying to, keep his rent paid, just trying to figure it out as he went along.
Keep his girlfriend in one piece.
Yeah.
I never really messed with Kyle Rayner all that much. All I know of Kyle Rayner is I'm double checking to make sure I got this right. Yeah, that stupid fucking mask that he wore was just the worst piece of anything on the face of anything.
It was very 90s. It's very
chunky,
90s.
real chunky.
Yeah, like
seems uncomfortable.
Where is his nose at in this mask? I never understood that. But Kyle Rayner,
Voldemort mask.
Voldemort mask.
Yeah.
All right.
I also like because he being that he was an artist, his constructs when he made stuff with the ring had a whole lot more imagination than say Hal or somebody else. Like he'd be making mechs, and I think one issue he actually made Optimus Prime to fight with him. And
that's what's up. That's good.
That's one of the coolest things about the Green Lanterns, just in general, is that John Stewart tends to make these elaborate mechanical kind of constructs because he's an engineer, right?
Yeah.
Kyle Rayner's were always these sort of fantastic kind of artistic things. Like that's one of the ways in which there's like limitless visual potential in the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, and Guy Gardner was just like a hammer.
Yeah,
and off to the races.
Jeff Johns actually kind of explained that in an issue of Green. It may have been during Rebirth too, like the four main like Green Lanterns and how their constructs basically work based on their backgrounds.
Right on. Leslie, who is your favorite superhero, or barring that fictional character?
I go for Wonder Woman for longevity. She was the one that I grew up watching and wanting to be and thinking she was just absolutely amazing. Um, but for relatability, I'm going with Jessica Jones.
Oh.
She's very kick-ass, but she's
It's been a rough year.
I said relatability. I didn't say I'm exactly like her.
Oh. Every time I go to bed, she just slips out solving crimes all night long. I had no idea.
How does this window keep getting broken?
That's Jones, yeah.
Yeah, because she's very kick-ass, but she's also, fairly broken person. She has issues. She wants to do the right thing, but is scared by what's out there and all that. This is purely going off the show, by the way. But yeah, no, she's awesome.
Right on, man. Right on. I can get down with that. Mine, surprising, I think nobody is the Bat. The Batman. The Batman. Look, this is a motherfucker who's got no powers but the power of cold green cash. And, he uses that cold green cash to work out his own issues and also just terrorize the hearts of men all throughout Gotham City.
Not improving the city at all or trying to...
No, I push back. There's so many people on Twitter that he should just use that money to help. He does that as well. But there's some people that are always just going to turn to a life of crime, and occasionally they need the wrist broke. And that's what Batman is there to do.
I just saw somebody post on Twitter recently. It's like, just imagine going out and you just getting the eighth or whatever, and Batman just coming out of nowhere and breaking your arm.
You're right. What he does, I think, takes gall, especially when you compare him with the Justice League, right? You're looking at fucking gods in Wonder Woman, indestructible aliens in Superman, the Lanterns, and all that. Yeah. A literal man-hunting Martian is on that team. And Batman's just a dude in a suit with a lot of fucking gadgets. He does not stack up or compare to anybody else, but he's also one of the most respected members of the league. Now,
sometimes even feared.
Yeah, sometimes even feared. Now, sometimes you could say he's the villain. Looking at you, Identity Crisis. But yeah, it's... I think he's got the best stories out of all of them. If I look at my shelf of comic books, when it comes to DC, it's just Batman, and then everything else is on the shelf there. Actually, there's a good bit of Wonder Woman on there too. But yeah, Bats will always be my dude. What about you, Brian?
I think Duquan had the correct answer, and that's Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man is the best superhero ever invented. For all the reasons he says. But it is very easy to see yourself reflected in Peter Parker for all of the problems he has, for all of the challenges he faces, the interpersonal relationships. But there have been a number of stories even before Miles Morales came along. I remember an issue of Paul Jenkins' run on Peter Parker Spider-Man that centered around a young boy who loved Spider-Man, and his dad kind of arranges a meeting with Spider-Man, only to discover at the end that the entire time this boy was with Spider-Man, it was his dad dressed up as Spider-Man. And it was just this really nice little thing where it's like, it's like, yeah, we're all very familiar now, thanks to Spider-Verse, that you can wear the mask. Anybody can wear the mask. But that's kind of like the whole mission statement behind Spider-Man. He's like, I think he is the ultimate everyman hero in popular fiction.
Right on. The ultimate in popular fiction. Jermon, keep that in mind for the hero draft. We need to get Spider-Man before Brian gets Spider-Man.
Immediately.
Right on. Good call. Moving on over to the smoothest of the crunchy, Evan Peanut Butter, who is starting his own podcast. I had the pleasure of being the first guest on said podcast.
Is it like this week we're going to be sampling Jif peanut butter?
Unfortunately, the peanut butter he made. I used the finest macadamia nuts to make this better. Don't even know what macadamia nuts are. Let's get into this.
I actually drank all the oil that sat on top. I didn't realize it separated.
He said, what's a movie that you feel you could greatly improve had you been a part of the production? What single role would you take, i.e. an editor, a writer, a director, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Mr. Martin, what movie would you greatly improve by being a part of the filmmaking process?
Oh my God. Well, the very first thing I thought of was the Michael Bay Transformers movies, which like is textbook everything wrong, I think. And it only got worse and worse and worse. But the role I would take, because that's the hard part for this one, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, Transformers is the movie, but what role? Like, where did it go wrong, right? The role I would take on as the studio executive that probably told him what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think, I think Bay's aesthetic is fine for a Transformers movie. I don't think that's the problem with Transformers. I think the biggest problem, if I had to boil it down to a single thing, it would be the fact that, okay, this is a movie about Shia LaBeouf's character. You understand that, right? And the robots are all incidentally just here. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with Transformers. Yeah. Also, I need to have some sort of input over the art department, because it's like they just, you know how like when the Pixar artists go to like zoos or they go to like Africa to study animals and the way they move? It's like the concept artists for Transformers threw every design that animated series and the toy line gave us out the window and just went to a fucking junkyard and drew a bunch of still lifes. Mm-hmm. That's what they came back with. Everything in that movie is so needlessly convoluted looking. And one of the things I laugh about to this day is that when Optimus Prime is transforming, he hits the ground like it fucking hurts to transform. Like, this hurts so much. And I never got that impression. And I don't think I should. You know, with the Transformers, this is literally what you do. It's like if I was walking and every step I took were like, God, this hurts. So there just needs to be, I need to have a role that's high enough up the food chain to infect all of those things and get those ideas back on track. Like get the people, minimize the people are the collateral damage, and revise the designs. Because I think that's about the worst thing I can say about that first Transformers movie, the Dark of the Moon and the Revenge of the Fallen. We just wiped the board, and this is going to be like a what do we call it? A Kelvin timeline for the Transformers.
In fairness, they can keep Bernie Mac in there. He
yeah, of course.
He was the shining light.
Shining light in the 5 minutes he's in that movie.
He stays. I'd even say John Turturro stays, because I think he's a good enough actor that we could turn that into something.
Right on. Well, to piggyback off of that, I'll go. I think what you're looking for is a producer role, Brian, is going to be your best bet, because that's what I'm going to be in The Dark Tower. And I need to be a high enough producer to make sure that film never happens in the first place. Because you look at
time traveling producer, we must stop production immediately.
Like Deadpool, just go in.
You go in there and clap out everybody who had anything to do with that. If you look at the series that is Dark Tower, that shit is thousands of pages. It is, as far as I can think off the top of my head, the only series that each book is a different genre than the book before it. All right, you have a Western. Book 4 is a fucking love story. Book 4 is Stephen King's Romeo and Juliet by way of Shakespeare. Book 5 is The Magnificent Seven. Book 6 is a horror book. So each one is its own different flavor, a whole tapestry that weaves throughout this. And they tried to take all of that and boil it into a 90-minute film. I think Dark Tower is about 93 minutes or something like that. That's not going to work.
Really trying to break that Passenger 57 record for like shortest movie,
right?
Shortest action movie ever.
Oh yeah, you mean New Mutants? It's a travesty. There's not a single good thing about that film, really, if you're a Dark Tower fan. And if you're not a Dark Tower fan, it's just a mediocre action movie. that
Pretty
really
much,
doesn't make much sense to you. They don't do a whole lot to set up a backstory of what's going on. It is that's something that needs a lot more to it than a 90-minute film. So as a producer, I'm trying to make sure that shit never happens, and I'm trying to make sure steps are put in place to ensure the integrity of what this series is supposed to be.
I think it probably would have been better off as a TV series.
I think you can do it in movies. As a matter of fact, I've been working on a podcast where I pitch a Dark Tower movie series. I think it
hear
works.
that, Paprika? There's a pitch for you to steal.
There's a pitch. Yeah, so definitely the Dark Tower for me, because that series is a lot more than what people haven't read it think it is. Leslie, what you got?
So I knew I wanted to fix at least one of the Star Wars prequels. And the challenge for me was, what do I think I could do better without having seen it before? You know, like assuming I'm not a time traveler.
No matter what you choose, it's better than what we got. So you're already good.
I went with Revenge of the Sith, and I'll be the emotional scene specialist. Because that's the shit that felt the most wooden for me. I know Natalie Portman is a good actress. She can be a fantastic actress. But though working with Hayden Christensen and the shitty dialogue, it's like, no, you want to have a love scene? Okay, this is what you want to go for. Anakin, you don't want to be cardboard. You want to be stoic. There's a difference. Do it with the eyes. You can have some feeling and passion in your voice, but, you know, don't just, no, I'm a Jedi. I'm not supposed to feel.
but
So that's what I would do.
But he's going to make things the way they wanted them to be.
Oh, I'm so mad you said that. That's an emotional specialist. I think there's a number of movies that could use your talents there as the emotional specialist.
Star Wars, I think as a franchise, was like outside of Leia and Han was horrible when it came to that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's never been good. Yeah,
it's never.
I think if you came on to the set of Revenge of the Sith and said, "Yes, I am the what did you call it?
Emotional
specialist." George Lucas would just immediately start thinking about Linda Ronstadt and walk off set crying. You'd probably just delay the entire production indefinitely.
All right.
Yeah, they just. I mean, look at Yoda. Yoda had jokes. He was funny. He could be serious. Like, the whole no emotion. You have Kenobi. He clearly enjoyed himself. He had fun. He had a sense of humor. Like, the whole no emotion. Like, stop. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I think they took that we aren't supposed to love and kind of snowballed that into no emotions whatsoever.
Yeah.
And to the fact that, you know, Javon saying that Han and Leia having the best relationship with Star Wars, that's all Lawrence Kasdan and Irv Kirshner. That's nothing Lucas related.
Oh yeah.
And there is no love in the new movies at all whatsoever.
No.
So they kind of scraped over the possibilities and ignored the gaping possibilities that could have been. Javon, what do you have there, sir?
It's funny because when thinking about that question, I thought about Star Wars, I thought about Transformers, but there was one movie that I think could definitely use some help also, and that was BVS.
Okay.
And I would want to be an editor for BVS because I think that was one of the main problems with that movie. It was just poorly edited. Like they did the Ultimate Edition or whatever, and it was a little more coherent. The story was a little more coherent, but
so much better.
Yeah, but there was a lot. I mean, it left a lot to be desired.
It's still pretty far from what I would call good.
Yeah.
It's like
I think, and that's the thing. I think Zack Snyder is a great visual director, but as far as like story and storytelling, I think he definitely puts action over story. And there were because there were points I was looking, it felt like a series of action set pieces put together, cobbled together into a movie, and they tried to thread some kind of story, to give them a reason, Batman and Superman a reason to fight. And I was like, because there were points in that movie that just, I was like, while the whole nightmare sequence with Batman, fighting in the future and all this stuff looked cool as hell, I was like, that served absolutely no purpose to the story whatsoever.
It was set up. I mean, he's come out and said, that this was set up for what he had planned down the road. That was supposed to be a breadcrumb.
I think it's a really good, it's a good indicator though, because of that there's two ways to come to franchise filmmaking. One is to leave stuff on the table, and the other one is to not leave stuff on the table. Right.
Right.
And I think a lot of what Snyder did in his time in those DC movies was leave stuff on the table. And what you ended up with were a bunch of movies that on their own, it's like he was trying to reverse engineer a real franchise. And I think that's what didn't work about it.
Yeah.
Right on. I think if he'd have been able to complete this whole, 5-movie vision that he had, what we got in BVS might have been more respected over time. But because everything shut down completely after Justice League, we're just left with a whole bunch of breadcrumbs that lead nowhere, and a whole bunch of setups and plans with no payoffs ever.
But I mean, and to a lesser degree, the Amazing Spider-Man movies did the same thing. And if there's a lesson behind all of this, it's never assume a franchise is going somewhere.
You mean like the Dark Universe?
Right. That's probably the best story of all, right? That's the one that's oh man, we've got so much potential here. And it's I agree. Your opening salvo fucking blew.
Right. You've always put the story first over the franchise. And yeah, that's that doomed a couple of different franchises. Good question from Peanut Butter. Moving on to young Brad Ledbetter. He said, we live in a time of pandemic. The Black Plague ravaged the world and changed cultural expression for decades. How will the COVID lockdown change movies, TVs, books, etc. in the years to come? I saw on a podcasting Facebook group that I'm a part of that one thing that COVID has done is start a lot of brand new shitty podcasts out there. Because what else are you going to do? You can just get all the equipment shipped to you.
It was the top 3 sellers on Amazon for weeks on end were hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and Yeti microphones.
Yeah. And I still can't find any good webcams out there. But it's hard to tell I have ideas of what could change. I think we're going to see a shift towards smaller, more personal stories that are being subconsciously written through all this. Since everybody's kind of at home and in their own bubble and environment, I think you're going to get a lot of more personal stories that are told coming down the pipe. I think it's going to, and with that, it's going to be a return of smaller budget films. Smaller to mid-budget joints. We've seen things. We're starting to see a slow resurgence of mid-budget movies like The Old Guard or John Wick or something like that. Those are coming back, and I think with these smaller, more personal stories, you're not going to need all those crazy effects and CGI and whatnot. So what do you need all the money for? It's going to result in smaller budgets. I don't think 2021 will have a summer blockbuster. I think it's going to be just a year of summer blockbusters that were supposed to be released this year, intermingled with what was already scheduled for 2021. So there's not going to be your traditional May to August, I don't think. I think, let's say January 1st, things are set back to rights and theaters open up again. Obviously, we won't be there because we'll all be at Soup Day. But January 2nd, I'm back in theaters, theoretically. I think probably February on.
I really hope that we are at Soup Day on New Year's, not because we have to be there, but because we want to be there.
Yeah. That's all we can find to eat now.
That's all we're allowed to eat is our 2 crusty loaves of bread and soup from Soup Day.
Did you guys get down on the gruel?
Yeah. I smuggled in some paprika for the gruel.
I'm just saying, they better not take take Dipsgiving away from us.
As long as they don't take well, Dipsgiving 2020 is that's not happening.
Dipsgiving is looking really dicey, guys. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamon.
Your backyard is big enough that could you socially distance Dipsgiving.
Oh, I guess you're right.
You could socially distance it, but I'm not putting my.
I'm not sure the logic of Dipsgiving is that we're all just eating from the same trough, basically.
Exactly. Like, they're still going to be breathing on that food whether I'm right there or not.
All right, that's a good point.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
As far as how TV is affected, the only thing I care about is this shit affected Falcon and Winter Soldier. Damn it, I'm not happy about it. What about you guys? What Jermon, what do you think how is the coronavirus going to change the industries of books and film and all that?
I think I think for sure VOD is going to become a more viable option as far as movie studios are going, because especially now seeing that a lot of theaters just aren't open or can't open, movie studios got to try to make some money somehow. And like, especially with the whole Trolls situation, like when like Universal or some of these other movie studios see is like, hey, we can literally just give these movies straight to the people and actually make some decent money with it, as opposed to having to rely on these big chain movie theaters to get our money. It's like, it was like we can like, I think they'll finally realize it's like they're not really beholden to one thing to get their income now.
Yeah, I feel like that also goes in hand with my return to small mid-budget movies, because they're not going to be able to make they're not going to be able to make Avengers money on video on demand, right? Because everyone's just it's going to be like what people do with the pay-per-view. It's going to be one guy who gets it, invites all his friends over, and then they're going to all watch it together. That's 5-6 tickets. But nobody's missed out on.
Look, when Tenet comes to VOD, nobody's coming over to my house. It's just going to be me in the bathroom with my cell phone. Could not be the worst. Like I'm gonna mention Chris Nolan in my tweet to let him know that's what I'm doing.
Chris Nolan would jump out the fucking window.
Do not bring that shit on us. That's all I got to say. I'm not having. What about you, Leslie? What do you think?
So I was thinking more of how it would influence the stories. I think we'll see some more pandemic or biological warfare types of movies. And I think I've talked about this with a few people, but even watching TV shows and films now, when it's just been a few months and somebody gets into somebody else's personal space, I cringe. I'm just like, oh no, back the fuck up. So I can also see that being used in the way they film, tighter angles and getting, using that personal space to really add more of a sense of anxiety and claustrophobia to it. Mm-hmm. Which, that is something that is already done. The film Mother is a great example of, that tight focus. But yeah, I think that will start to be used even more, that sort of thing.
Right on. I can see that. I can totally see that. What about you there, Mr. Martin?
Look, my hopes for this begin and end with one thing. I hope that what this does to fiction is it finally ends the national nightmare of YA dystopian novels. I hope we can finally get past this, because like whenever I meet somebody who's writing a book or anything like that, it's YA dystopian fiction. I was like, really? Oh God, I can't wait to read it. It's like, enough. Like, let's get some optimism back in fiction. I really think that's what we're going to need coming out of all of this. I think we need a return. And by all of this, I mean everything happening right now in the world. If we get out on the other end of this, I better not read another fucking dystopian book for at least 15 years.
It reminds me of a meme I've seen. I thought when the world ended, I'd be wearing something like this. And, you have like anyone from Resident Evil. Instead, I'm wearing this. And it's somebody in like fuzzy slippers and pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt. It's like, yeah,
gotta be
you're not
comfortable
wrong.
at the end of the world.
This is not the apocalypse outfit I thought I'd have.
What? We're gonna get one of two movies. We're either gonna get the full-on Trump fucked this up movie, or it'll be a very thinly veiled Trump fucked this up movie. Which one do you all think we're gonna get? Is it gonna be the direct one or the thinly veiled one, or is it gonna be a Volcano Dante's Peak situation?
Oh, maybe that. I want to see the the Incredible Dr. Fauci movie where Dr. Fauci takes on every virus known to man, and the COVID-19 actually dropped, but here are all of the viruses that Dr. Fauci blocked from public awareness for like 30 years. He's in a lab fighting some Asian dude, and there's like a vat, bubbly green fluid where the virus is, and he's fighting him on a catwalk. Like, that's what I want. I want just a series of Dr. Fauci.
Are we sure this is another Joker origin story that you're giving us, sir?
It could be.
This sounds a lot like Ace Plant Company here.
I mean, maybe that's what happened to Trump. Maybe Trump fell into a vat.
Man, if they do that, they have
the loose morals vat.
They have to get Ian McDermott to play Trump. Have to.
Oh man, yeah.
Yes.
But Ian McDermott as Palpatine playing Trump.
Oh my God.
Unlimited power.
2020.
I think we're gonna get. Yeah, I think we're gonna probably see a little more creativity as far as movies and TV and what have you. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see like a Zoom rom-com.
Yeah.
Like two people getting together via Zoom or something like that, or having to do a whole socially distanced relationship.
All right.
Have you guys seen the Parks and Rec and the 30 Rock specials that NBC put together that were filmed during quarantine? Like, they got pretty inventive with those.
Yeah, they did. Right on. I don't. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what all comes out of this. Let's move on over to Ryan Elliott, who, with his usual brevity, said, "Pick a character actor. What's their best and their worst roles?"
Jesus Christ.
Why don't you kick us off there, Brian?
Well, I had a deep list here. John C. Reilly, William H. Macy, Luis Z. Guzman. I'm just assuming that's his middle initial. I don't really know. But I was like, no, fuck it. I need to go with somebody who actually spells out his middle name, not this initial bullshit. And Harry Dean Stanton was my guy.
Okay.
Now, the challenge when I got to that point was figuring out, what has he been bad in, or what was like his worst role? Like Harry Dean Stanton is, to me, one of the finest character actors of all time. And the as far as best roles go, like, normally he's relegated to like backup status or like supporting actor. That's why he's a character actor. But there's a movie called Paris, Texas from 1984 where he basically goes on a road trip with his estranged son, and it is like a revelation. And it's kind of hard to watch that movie and not and wonder, like, why didn't this do the trick? Like, why didn't he become a big A-lister coming off of a performance and a movie like this? But I think we're kind of better for him not have taken on that role. I think as this kind of like A-list mega celebrity, because Harry Dean Stanton has just had so much that he's contributed over the years. As far as his worst role, I would say the janitor in the Avengers is his worst role.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Damn it.
Because no, and the only reason I say that is because you got Harry Dean Stanton. Why on earth is he only here? Harry Dean Stanton should have gotten second billing in this movie, and he should have been the janitor on the goddamn helicarrier and like in every single scene in the movie, like a Where's Waldo situation where it's like, was that fucking Harry Dean Stanton back there?
Maybe
the whole time. So the only reason I put him there is because I'm like, I needed a little more Harry Dean in my.
Well, the reason he's there is because he just happened to be near set that day. Not even on set, near set. And Joss got word of it, and he was like, "We'll see if he wants to come down and shoot something." That's why you got that scene.
Well, Joss should have been like, "Awesome, put him in the van."
I think Whedon probably has a lot more material from that got cut or whatever. We're gonna on Disney Plus. We're gonna see the Stanton cut.
The Stanton cut. Release the Stanton cut. I like it. What about you, Leslie?
I went with John Turturro, actually. He was the first person that came to mind, and, I flipped through like, okay, is there anyone else? I'm like, no, you know what? No, I'm sticking with it. As his best role, I went for Pete in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which was a film I did not expect to like. I didn't have any strong feelings about oh no, I've forgotten his name.
Clooney?
Yeah, that guy.
I've had very strong feelings about George Clooney.
For years.
Very, he's like my freebie.
Yeah.
As a married man, he's my freebie.
I was not a huge fan of him at all from ER.
Okay.
And, just slowly, eventually, like, yeah, he's great. But at the time, I was just kind of like, eh.
He's the American.
Sorry?
he was a bobblehead before bobbleheads were cool. He was always like, It's like,
maybe that's
seriously,
why
the trailer,
motion sickness.
the trailer for Peacemaker will make you like nauseous. Like it gives you motion sickness.
George Clooney's Funko is the only bobblehead Funko that exists. But you went John Turturro, huh?
Yes. So so his role in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, I ended up loving the film and think he did a phenomenal job. I was torn on his worst, but I went with something that was actually mentioned a little bit earlier, his role in Transformers.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Right on.
Like when you mentioned him, you're like, well, we could keep him. I was like, oh no. And then you're like,
I don't think
he might be able to make it something. I was like, okay, yes, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, you don't keep him as is. Like he needs material to work with.
Yes.
Good material.
Yes.
Could you imagine pitching somebody a movie with like John Turturro, Francis McDormand, and John Malkovich, and somebody's like, "Oh, it's the new Coen Brothers movie." Like, no, it's Transformers.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's where Michael Bay was like, "Get him in the van."
He was on the set of one of the Coen Brothers movies one day. He's like, "I want them."
It's like that scene. It's like that scene when Brody gets abducted in Last Crusade. It's like they thought they were walking into a shop, and then the doors just shut, and the truck drives away with them in it.
German, what do you have for this here? Who's your go-to character actor?
Go-to character actor. Got to go with the god of character actors, Gary Oldman. Man.
I considered that.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Are we still considering him a character actor?
Well, at this point, I think he may have evolved beyond that, but like that's what he made his career. Like he's doing character roles. But
right on.
Yeah, but I would say his best, or even my favorite of his, like, because you could probably pick there's probably half a dozen you could pick, but I had to go with Stansfield from Leon the Professional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yes. Yeah, he was manic, coked out, just detestable, just like.
Yeah, he was Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Rude.
That's cool. We text all the time.
But that, and then I think his worst, to me, his worst was probably Book of Eli. Like it was an all right movie and everything. The twist kind of elevated a little bit, but it was basically Gary Oldman doing a Gary Oldman impersonation.
Okay.
That is not a film I have seen.
I don't understand why people, because I saw somebody shitting on this on Twitter a couple days ago. That movie is acceptably fine.
Yeah, I don't hate the movie. I just thought he didn't do anything remarkable in it.
I would probably went with that second Planet of the Apes movie for nothing remarkable in Gary Oldman. What was he?
They wasted him in there.
Yeah, Rise?
No, Dawn.
Dawn.
Yeah.
All right, then. Well, good job on that. Yeah, that Leon the Professional Gary is definitely one of my favorite Garys.
Yes.
I came close to going with character actress Margot Martindale.
I thought about her too.
Yeah, having just seen her in a movie 2 days ago, but I decided not to. I went with Keith David.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, as soon as he steps into the scene, everyone's like, "Oh shit." Who knows how this is going to go now? Keith David's here. Keith David's here. Run. As far as best, I'm going to go a little bit of an interesting way. I'm going to say his voice role in Spawn is best, man, because he puts in some dope work in Spawn, and I'll also combine it with Goliath from Gargoyles. Shut the fuck up and Paprika. There you go. You got the Gargoyles love. Shut up. Move on.
Never.
You weren't in Paprika when that vote happened, Brian. Which way are you going? Are you going Gargoyles or Animaniacs?
Gargoyles.
Ah, well, we'll be finding
Gargoyles.
New guest for Choose Our Own Adventure next month to replace both Brian Martin and Jermon Jackson.
Oh no, those two clowns are gone.
And worst for Keith David? So he was in Delta Farce, which is a comedy with two of those blue-collar comedy clowns.
Was that the Larry the Cable Guy one?
Yeah, Larry the Cable Guy, and Bill Engvall is in there as well. And DJ Qualls, too.
I could see some humor from some of them, but not Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, because he's not funny.
No, not at all.
Not at all. So yeah, it's him, DJ Qualls, a bunch of other people I assume need to pay rent are in this movie. Yeah, it's not great. So just stay away from it.
Keith David has a weird filmography. Like, it's just all over the place.
And to transition into that, let's talk about what Shannon's talking about here. She said, back when choosing an adventure all started, I decided to keep a running note on my iPhone to track my topic ideas. Most notes grew into something complex over time. This one did not. I'm choosing this one mainly after watching the original Ghostbusters. Shout out to our champ over there, Jermon Jackson, who drafted Ghostbusters.
Yes.
And she said the most awesome 8-year-old, our boy, the resident youngin and Paul Formack, who seriously needs his own podcast, and I agree with that. It's simply this: talk about Ernie Hudson. And you will talk about a motherfucker that's got a career. This motherfucker's got a weird ass filmography.
Oh boy.
I forgot he's in Airheads, which pleases me to no end whatsoever. If you look at his filmography, it is confusing as shit, and it boils down to this: he is the king of being third billing in a B movie. That's what Ernie Hudson is. He did Oz from 97 to 03, which is, I assume, what pretty much everybody these days knows him from. In that time that he did Oz from 97 to 03, he's still in 13 movies. And
Jesus.
6 made-for-TV movies during just that time. He also did Oz as a main person. I want to know who Ernie Hudson owes money to. Because he did not stop. But obviously, for me, it's Ghostbusters is my favorite, barely edged out, or it's barely edging out The Crow. Jermon, what you got on it?
Yeah, that's pretty much like, of course, I literally just watched the two Ghostbusters movies last night, and
a celebration for your victory.
yes, I just basked in it.
He was trying to claim victory on day one.
He's just one of those working actors, man. He's like, he keeps a job basically. Like, I mean, I think he's still working to this day, basically. Of course, you have Ghostbusters, The Crow, I think Hand That Rocks the Cradle, of course, Oz. I think he's done quite a bit of voice work. It was crazy. I think I saw him. I was looking up his filmography, and it was something that surprised the hell out of me. Transformers Prime animated series. He did the voice of the, I guess, Fowler, the I guess their little government agent or whatever that the Autobots worked with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
this dude's everywhere.
Oh, and this is the one that got me. Superpowers or whatever. I guess when the Super Friends cartoon kind of like moved on into Superpowers, he did the voice of Cyborg.
Yes, he is Vic Stone. Yeah, back in the 80s.
Yeah. So
Leslie, what you got on old Ernie Hudson over there?
Well, I mean, you said most of it. Like, I was scrolling through his filmography, and I was just like, he's done a shit ton of stuff. And then I looked to see the date, and I was only at like 2015, starting at 2020 and going down. And I was just like, it keeps going. But yeah, I know him the most, of course, from Ghostbusters. But he was also in the new Twin Peaks. He was a colonel for some of it. And yeah, that's impressive. That the amount of things that he has done is just so impressive.
Yeah, he puts in work. Brian, what you got on old Ernie Hudson over there?
Well, what can I say about Ernie Hudson, right? Like, I mean, first of all, his name is Ernie. We can all agree on that. I only know of 2 other Ernies, being Ernie, the Sesame Street character, and Ernie Reyes Jr.
That's right.
And so there's only so many Ernies out there.
Well, Ernest Borgnine, I guess.
No, he's Ernest. He is not Ernie.
Okay,
Never really went by Ernie.
I mean, if you knew him, I mean, you can call him
maybe if you knew him. But yeah, I feel like he's like out of the like the Ghostbusters. He's like the one of those 4 people that had to keep working to make ends meet. That's kind of I look at Ernie and I'm like, yeah, you didn't make it out of this scot-free. You got to keep hustling. Like, I mean, Bill Murray has made a career essentially of being a weird, eccentric guy wandering the streets. But Ernie Hudson doesn't quite have that mystique about him. So
he didn't have seasons of SNL coming out of that. Like Aykroyd had SNL, Murray had SNL, and who am I thinking about? Ramis. Ramis is, I think, Second City, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, they all had that establishment coming, and it's not like Ernie Hudson didn't have establishment. I mean, the dudes started working in 1976.
Yeah.
So he had like 8, 9 joints under his belt before Ghostbusters, but he didn't have that. Like SNL was like a rock show. But yeah, the thing that kills me is 1994. Motherfucker put out 6 movies in 1994. You got one Ernie Hudson every other month in 1994 of varying genres. You had Sugar Hill, which is the crime joint with Wesley Snipes in it. You had No Escape, which is like an action joint with Ray Liotta, if I remember correctly. You had The Crow came out that year. And then The Cowboy, Airheads, and Speechless were all comedies of different flavors of comedy. So that motherfucker put out work in 1994. Yeah. I'm gonna see what I can do about getting Ernie Hudson on Choose Another Adventure.
He was literally like Winston, and with his career, like if it's a steady paycheck, I'll do it.
Ernie Zeddemore in these streets.
That was just his audition for the movie.
He said that. No, that's a good line. Put that in the movie.
Well, he really nailed the audition. Yeah.
All right, and to wrap this up, we got Scott Self, the other half of the Scott and Shannon duo. He said an independent film, indie movie, whatever you want to call it, is a feature film or short film that is produced outside the major film studio system, in addition to being produced and distributed by independent entertainment companies. Thank you, Wikipedia, he says. I myself was surprised at some of the movies that fall into this category, like Terminator, Memento. Star Wars is an indie film for the most part. He said, well, I'm partial to THX 1138 from 71. What is your favorite indie film of the 2000s? And Leslie, we're going to start with you. I have an idea of what yours might be, but I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I would say Garden State is yours.
No.
Yes! I'm very happy being wrong here.
I mean, I do really enjoy Garden State, but no, I had to go with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ooh.
It's one of my favorite films ever, so it's definitely my top indie film. It was produced by Anonymous Content and then distributed by Focus Features.
Okay.
But and I know I've talked about this film before, but it is just so amazing. And it's very surreal. It's the story of a relationship that starts out loving and wonderful and turns really sour, but you're seeing that from such odd points of view, with the memory erasure and all of that stuff. It's awesome. It's an amazing film.
It goes so low key because this is you can definitely put this as science fiction.
Yeah.
As far as I know, we do not have the technology to erase memories. Well, we do. It's called tequila.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it flies under the radar. Most people think about this as a weird, fucked up romance of some kind, but it is definitely some solid science fiction.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Except for Michelle Gondry.
The cast you have in it, you've got Jim Carrey, you've got Kate Winslet, Elijah Wood, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo. There's just a ton of good names in that film.
Tom Wilkinson,
yeah.
Yeah, Carmine Falcone in a movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what put me on the map for Ruffalo. I was like, who is this dude? I kind of fucking like this guy.
Yeah, he was awesome in that.
He is awesome in that, man. All crushing hard over Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
German, what you got for what's your favorite indie joint?
It's weird I was looking this up, and yeah, it surprised me some of the stuff that was considered indie films, like some really big hits. But if we're going 2000s, I had to go with probably one of my favorites, Little Miss Sunshine.
Hey, is that Alan Arkin up in that joint?
Alan Arkin, the grandfather. So great.
Great cast.
Fuck a lot of women. Advice.
Yeah, Greg Kinnear, Toni Collette, Paul Dano was in there, Steve Carell. That was the movie where Alan Arkin stole Eddie Murphy's Oscar. Man, that was just like...
Still mad about that one. Still fucking... Because he stole what the Dreamgirls writer.
Yeah, that was when he was up against Dreamgirls. Oh, man. But, I mean, regardless, though, I really like that movie. Nice, quirky little dramedy, I guess. Very well written, like at points just absolutely hilarious. Like just like that little running gag when you hearing that car just go off and stuff as they're trying to start it up and everything.
Yeah. I haven't watched that in a while. That's a good pull, sir.
Yeah.
Good pull.
Yeah.
Brian, what you got on this?
Well, my preparation for this question looks a lot like my prep for one of our drafts. In that I wrote down about 3 dozen movies, and none of them was the one German just named. But the movie I'm going to go with this is by no means the best indie movie of like the last 20 years, but it is probably my favorite, I guess, and that's Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
It is such a bizarre movie. Like I watch it now and I think I am lucky we're all lucky this exists. Like This should not exist. Nothing about this movie should exist. But like sitting there in the theater watching that movie the first time and not really knowing much about it, the second he's sitting on that bus and he chucks the action figure out the window on the string, I'm like, I get this. I understand this movie. We have an understanding. And I've said this time and time again. I think there are 2 types of people. That people don't hate Napoleon Dynamite. People either get it or they don't get it. It's not I like it or I hate it. It's like you got it or you didn't.
I hate it.
From the moment. then my theory is that you didn't get it, and I don't know because like if you're watching that scene where he drops the action figure out the window and you're like, what is this about? Then you didn't get it. But if you're watching it and you're like, fuck yeah. He dropped it out the window. Fuck. That movie's for you.
It is cringe. I don't do... No, I'm saying it is cringe, awkward humor, and I don't do that. I hate that. I loathe that.
The moment where Uncle Rico, the moment where Uncle Rico throws that steak at Napoleon on the bike as they pull up and just right in his face. There's so many things about it. Just like, oh my God, this is so weird. But
it's a definite.
I understand.
You have to have a certain type of humor to.
It's definitely an acquired taste. Yeah.
So I watched it twice. The second time I watched it with a friend who loved it like y'all do. She was fucking hilarious. She was funny as fuck. The movie itself, nah. It to me, it was more like the way you don't watch Rocky Horror Picture Show to watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. You watch it to do the shout outs, to have a ridiculously fun time with your friends. It's not a great film. That's how I.
I'm not arguing that Napoleon
That's
Dynamite is
how
a
I
great
feel
film.
about Napoleon Dynamite. It's less about the movie and more about the people you're watching it with. And the movie is just meh enough that I'm not willing to put myself through.
So here's the thing. I think you're onto something there, but I think it only works like that if the people you're watching it with get it.
Yeah.
Right? And if the people you're watching it with get it, you will have this weird communal experience. Because I can watch Napoleon Dynamite in a room with the lights out by myself and still laugh my ass off. So that's
no.
Yeah.
All right, interesting, man.
I mean, I could when I was allowed to watch movies by myself.
I love that movie so much. For me, it was what Scott mentioned. It's Memento, man. Oh. That was the Chris Nolan calling card. I think it's no secret at this point that Chris Nolan is my favorite director of all time. For you listening, that is the poll for this week: Nolan versus Kubrick. Do not fuck this up, people. But yeah, just the way it's set up is just absolutely bonkers, batshit weird. There's times you have absolutely no idea what's going on because the main character has absolutely no idea what's going on. Just the premise of a dude trying to solve his wife's murder and he has short-term memory loss issues is bonkers insane for a premise. And then how do you pull that off? If you did a front to back, just I'm a guy trying to solve my wife's murder and I have memory issues. If you just did that as a movie, that's an interesting concept. And then you take it and you flip it to how he lays out the entire story with the black and white parts are running in one direction, the color parts are moving in another direction, and how it ends at the beginning, it begins to the ending. It is that I think was like, oh, this dude's gonna give us some shit that is going on down the road, and he has definitely delivered on that promise.
How I'm still kind of curious as to how he even wrote that movie, because holy crap.
There's he explained it. There's a video somewhere on YouTube where he explained it. And if you look at the Memento wiki page, there's a graph that kind of lays out how everything is sequentially ordered throughout that movie. Yeah, and you got to have a weird mind in order to lay that shit out.
Oh my God! It's like that broke my brain watching that for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. And that's
also Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Sammy Jenkins in that movie.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
assumed Sammy Jenkins, also a really great character actor. So.
Great character actor. Ned Ryerson.
Yeah. Yes.
Groundhog Day, not drafted by anybody.
Yes.
That's it, man. What, Brian? What are you nerding out on currently?
Nerding out on? I've been ingesting a lot of material, but I've got to say that the best thing I have read this year and most years was probably a book that Oprah recommended to her legions of followers and devotees last year, but I don't know. I don't pay attention to that. I just read the damn book, and it was really, really fucking amazing. And it's called Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. It is not a science fiction book, guys. I'm just going to get out there and say that. It's about a girl living and essentially raising herself in the North Carolina marshland in the 1950s and 60s. And there's also a murder mystery. So, but it is... I have not read a book that was written with this sort of precision and expertise in a long, long time. Like it's probably one of the best crafted stories I have ever read, just in terms of language. It's an amazing book. So I really can't recommend it enough. And I've been reading a lot of sci-fi stuff too, but I gotta give a shout out to that book because it's amazing.
Right on. What about you, Jermon? What are you nerding out on lately?
Pretty much, just taking in a lot of, media via Netflix and what have you. I watched some weird-ass movie that was on there. It was An Evening with Beverly Loughlin. It had, like, Craig Robinson in there and was it Aubrey Plaza. And it's strange as fuck. Like,
if you got Aubrey Plaza, it's going to be strange as fuck.
Yeah, it's along those lines. And I last night I actually got to see, finally watch The Old Guard. I really enjoyed that movie. That was, like... I never read the book, but the book before, but I was like, wow, this is a very, very interesting premise.
It is.
And the action was like just as solid and everything. And I would definitely love to see more of it.
All right, right on, right on. And what about you, Leslie? What are you nerding out on?
Um, Book series. I recently uh, listened to all three books of the Themis Files series by Sylvain Nouvel. I don't remember if I had already started reading this during the June Choose Our Own Adventure, but if I had, I hadn't finished it yet. Definitely worth a read. Sci-fi, aliens, and uh, ginormous mechanical robots. But it's told from the point of view more like no, the book by Max Brooks, World War
World
Z,
War Z.
where it's interviews or journal entries, that sort of thing. Really good. And then I just started rereading the Brandon Sanderson Stormlight Archives, prepping for when the new book comes out in a few months.
November 11th.
Yeah.
All right, then, right on. And as for me, myself, I've been playing a good bit of Civilization lately, trying to not get conquered. And I continue to get conquered at the end. That's about it for that.
That's like the equivalent when I was playing Sim City for a bit, and like you would try to build your city and get everything together, and no matter what, it would go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And none of my Sim Cities lasted long enough because you could trigger, certain events, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
all right, I got a few bills. This is enough. This is enough to cause some really serious collateral damage. Send in the alien invasion.
I've also been reading I'm trying to get through all the Dawn of X books in preparation for a Dawn of X deep dive for Paprika in a couple weeks here. So I'm trying to tear through as many of those as I possibly can before I have my guest on to talk all things Hickman X related. And that's it. That's it for the July Choose Our Own Adventure. We'll be back with the August joint. Keep this train on moving until the end of 2020. Maybe we'll get back in the studio. We'll see how that all works out down the road there. But Zoom or studio, we will be here once a month for you. So until then, you guys take it easy, and we will see you next month. Wash your damn hands. Oh, no. I don't want to end the meeting for everybody. No.
Just stop recording.